One of the most cerebral and enigmatic rappers active since the mid-2000s, Lupe Fiasco is also among the most prominent artists in his field. He energized hip-hop with his debut album 2006's Food and Liquor. The album met with rave reviews for its strong storytelling and mature subject matter. Lupe's star continued to rise with success of his subsequent recordings. He is dedicated to the mission of empowering inner-city youth as artists, activists, and global citizens through his foundation. Lupe's willingness to tackle socio-political issues in his music, on social media, and in the media has defined his career at large. Today, Lupe sits to talk with noted journalist, commentator, and author Roland Martin. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Roland Martin and Lupe Fiasco.
All right. How we doing? Good, good, good.
Hello, hello. Hello, everyone.
All right.
Ramadan Mubarak. I won't be needing that.
Can somebody explain to me how in the hell it's June 11th and it's 66 degrees in D.C.? I'm not quite understanding this weather, this place, so, but it's all good.
Indeed, indeed. How are you, sir?
Doing great, doing great. How are things with you?
I'm good. Can't complain.
All right, let's jump right into it.
Yeah.
One of the things that I find to be interesting when I talk to artists is that the public really doesn't understand that you guys are self-contained corporations, that you can't just think about show business. You have to focus on the business of show. What did you first learn, or when did you first learn that it's business of show and not just show business?
Immediately, when I signed my first crooked record deal in high school, I was like, this doesn't look right. It's like one page. Like, is there more to this? But to take that even further, to expand on your analogy, each song is its own corporation, right? So every song has its own lawyer and producer and set of IP and all of these potential things that you got to query and go through. So each album is like 14 companies, right? In addition to your company, and in addition to the record company, in addition to the manufacturers, and then the distributors, and then the Spotifys and the streamers, and then your relationship with each consumer, each fan is its own company that you have to kind of maintain, right? Which you do somewhat so well or somewhat not so well with social media today, but back in the day, when I came up, 2006, I mean, it was a one-to-one you know, UK, you okay? Right shirt, you okay? Black shirt, everybody cool? You like this song? No? Okay. Red shirt, don't like this one, black shirt. So it's an interesting kind of, you learn it over time being in a business, you know, how to navigate what's real, what's not, and what's your best place to be. So as of now, late, kind of being past the business a little bit, having a lot of things automated. For me, it's more about just being the artist at this point, you know.
One of the most fascinating books I've read in the last 5 years was Luther Campbell's book called The Book of Luke, My Fight for Truth, Justice, in Liberty City. And what was amazing about that is there's this one scene where in the book where he talks about after there's a concert and he's sitting there, he's counting $25,000, $30,000. And these other artists going, man, what are you doing? He said, oh, I'm counting T-shirt sales and stuff sold in the back of the room. And all of them, they had sold their rights to some other company for like $2,500. And he was walking them through. He said, no. The tickets was one thing. The merchandise is another thing. The CD is another thing. And he was showing them, getting to understand that. And he talks in the book about, he said how where Diddy and Jay-Z and others, he said they were sort of 2.0 in terms of where he was. He would bring guys down. They would see how he was focusing on the business side of it. And it's amazing that a lot of people have these great ideas. They don't understand that, no, when you're an entrepreneur and you better focus on every dollar.
Again, it's multiple businesses. Even when I take artists with me on tour, they see that. They'll see that. They'll see merch. It's like, oh, man, you making your own merch? Like, yeah, you need to press up your own T-shirts. And, you know, you might make $20 a night, but that's $20 more than you didn't make, right?
And understanding cost per shirt, bulk, who you do it with.
The whole range of things. And some people are just pure artists, and it's not their piece. And it's important to make sure that they're able to find proper management or the proper team. If it's not a manager, it's a team of people who kind of have those expertise or that will to work in those different capacities. You have some people who, they don't even worry about the merch. You know, for them, it's, I'm about this stage performance, and that's what that is, and that's fine, right? You're mastering your craft. Some people can diversify and able to navigate all of the other kind of potential business opportunities within. And beyond it, even institutional opportunities and things that aren't necessarily business, was like, you know, public speaking or, you know, going and talking to academia or something like that. So there's all these different opportunities for artists, and some people just don't have that will to do it. Some people don't have the capacity to do it, and some people do it all the way, you know. So
I was in a meeting and an executive who said, whoa, you're not just a guy who's talking on television and radio. And I go, no, I could take that hat off and put the business hat on. Because growing up, my grandmother had a catering business, which I work with. My mom had a cake business tied to that. My dad was the cook. And so for me, from 7 to 8 years old, I sort of was operating in that business environment. For you, what was your life like as a child? What were you seeing, studying, and hearing that put you in a position to understand the business side of what you do now?
My family is serial entrepreneurs. My father, our family business was martial arts schools in Chicago. And then because he was in the military, he's Green Beret. I think he was Green Beret, some secret special force or something.
Something that could kill you pretty fast and you wouldn't know.
Real quick. He also had Army surplus stores. So he had access to all this Army surplus and all these different distributors. And so he had Army surplus stores and martial arts karate schools, stuff like that. So that was our family business. But he was also an engineer, you know. So he worked at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. He was an operating plant engineer. So he just had multiple jobs. He also played the drums and did music and did these other things. So he was just this polymath. And you watch him, in addition to my mother, who was a chef and a model and some other things. And it was like, oh, we got to get it how we live. Like, this is, you know, you got a regular job, but then you got 10 jobs. You also got these other jobs. So I kind of grew up in that. I got an award recently in Chicago from 1871, and it was like Entrepreneur of the Year. And it didn't even dawn on me that that's kind of what I was. I was like, why y'all giving me this award? It was like, bruh, you got that company, you got this company, you kind of do this. But yeah, so my family base has always been entrepreneurs, always been building things from scratch. To see them fail, to see them succeed, to reiterate and continue on. And those lessons, coupled with just in school and having the right teachers kind of give you the right that knowledge of, yeah, there's college, but there's also, and really pushing you to also do the also, right? And I got my first company when I was 19, First and 15th Productions. I was vice president. I was like 19, have no idea what to do, and we finna just learn this process and, you know, had some stumbles, and here we are.
Is it also vital that we sort of study the language? So, for instance, as you were talking, when you said, well, primary job and then 10 others, in the business world, that's called multiple revenue streams. Other folks would say, oh, no, that's just getting your hustle on. And I think what often happens is when we are talking to young folks, or even many adults, we might say multiple revenue streams from a business perspective. They will go, okay, I don't understand what that means. Well, no, you're actually doing it. And so they say, yeah, let's just get my hustle on. Yeah, it's the exact same thing. And so trying to teach folks the language of in one area that's the same in this community here, I think is important too.
I took it one step further. About 5 years ago, I started something called SOSA, Society of Spoken Art, which is a guild for rappers, which introduces them to the fields of linguistics, semiotics, communication theory, computational linguistics, just a whole range of talking and speaking. And we have conversations about that, you know, deeply, about the source of language, the use of language, when to use the dialect versus using the common ground, general speak, right, the general grammar, and then what are the effects of that, right? And it's very interesting that, you know, we as rappers, we know how to do it, but we don't know what we're doing. So we've been kind of pushing that agenda for the past like couple years. We actually got our first apprentice class, which is going to graduate in September. And you think you got a group of rappers sitting around discussing, you know, the best grammar. Is it Chomsky or is it, you know, Lakoff? Is metaphor theory this or that? And some of the best rappers in the world, we're very secret, very private, so I can't give you the list of who it is, but we're on that. You know, we're on that, okay, we've made it this far. Now let's get into the minutia. And is there power to be had in understanding the minutia of this thing that we use every day called language?
Which also educates people really on the brilliance of what you do. 3 hours ago, when I was getting dressed, someone posted a video of Brett Favre and John Gruden, and Favre was calling out these plays and was saying stuff that to me was Mandarin. And I said, too many people, you think a football player is dumb, they wouldn't have any idea of how the plays, and he was remembering plays from 30 years ago and just calling things out. Well, the same thing, when you look at when Ice-T did his documentary on rap, how Chuck D, how he sits and writes music and how he goes through it. I mean, the brilliance of that, and I think a lot of folks simply don't appreciate that it's not just somebody just getting up, spouting something. No, I mean, there is thought, there are things behind it that plays a role in terms of why folks have been successful for more than 20, 30 years.
I mean, we're masters of metaphor, we're masters of the narrative, and if you look at how metaphor is relevant to every capacity of life that we use, that we walk, some metaphor is so tiny that we don't even recognize that we're actually using it. And what happens when you make people who basically sell metaphors for a living, i.e. rappers, who for a long period of time had no idea that there was a structure behind that there was a system behind that it had impact beyond the arts, right? That is referenced in politics, that is referenced in the social, it's referenced in the corporate, it's referenced across all these different fields. And it's interesting to see the eyes light up of some, even my own eyes, to read something like, wow, I never knew that had that type of impact. There's definitely a thought process that's much deeper than entertainment. It's much deeper than that, and that's one of the things that we're kind of pursuing actively now, to see what is beyond that frontier, right?
As you've talked to the folks who are coming through your program, are you seeing them, where the light goes off for them when they realize that that this is not just about being on stage and performing, that it really is about you are creating something that is providing jobs, benefits, and resources to multiple numbers of people, and that in many ways that then spins off to people who are buying homes and then who are saving money and sending their kids to college. And so it's just much bigger than just a song, a hook. It really is. No, this is an industry.
I call it the song of life, right? Songs in the key of life, to quote one of the masters.
Anybody who has that CD?
Okay,
you don't know that was Stevie Wonder. Nudge the person next to you, go, okay, I need to download that.
But it's an idea of meeting you where you are. You're already a master of narrative. You're already a master of storytelling. What if I could show you that the whole world is built on stories, that large parts of corporations are built, live and die, based on their ability to tell a story, to craft story, where it's internal corporate messaging or outward branding messaging or whatever that is, right? However they choose to present themselves to the public. And that you 12-year-old girl from Compton, are a master of that right now. And that you can apply that skill set and that framework across all these different dimensions. And to kind of see that, to go back and say, hey, let's add, entertainment, sneaker deal. Let's also add head storyteller at Fortune 500 company. Like, let's also add, teacher. Let's add professor of linguistics as it relates to rap, with a focus on rap and the ghetto terminologies of things, or whatever you want to call it, right? And really see that, be on par with, you're on par with MIT's language department. You're on par with Caltech's computational linguistics department. You're on par because you're operating off these same things, but you can turn around because you're a poet. Not only can you grasp the didacticness, the instructional of it, you can also speak to the heart, right? And you can do that, but you can also speak to the feeling, and then you can speak to across all these different ranges, right? So how does that redefine your role as a rapper when you present that unquestionably and objectively to the world, right? We'll see. And we haven't. This is probably the second time that I've spoke about Society of Spoken Art in public. But it gets to the point of, in my space, that I know and I master, that I didn't go to college to pursue. Now I'm turning around and colleges are coming to us, right? And then how can we repeat that process and replicate that process and expand that process and give something that people may tend to overlook, or just say, oh, that's just for, that is just a entertainment pastime. And it's like, no, this can potentially shift world culture, shift narrative, shift philosophy, shift the next generation's points of view and their relationship to an art form, which is now witnessing and recognizing and realizing that it's really closer to, the fundamentals of life and how we do things.
How do you walk someone through the process of who is afraid of the largeness of a vision when other people don't get it? I was at the FedEx St. Jude Classic last week, and you look at now FedEx, they've got more than 700 planes flying 10 million packages a day around the world. Yet when the founder was in college, he got an F on his paper because his professor said this would never work. He's a multiple billionaire now, Mr. Smith. And it's interesting to me when people, they stop pursuing something because other people said, you're nuts, that's just not gonna work.
I had my math teacher, and from a personal point of view, my math teacher in high school, I always had remedial algebra all the way through high school. I had honors, everything else, but math, I was a dummy.
Bro, I'm with you. I still don't know. I talked my way into a passing grade in college in algebra, and I told him I can count money.
That's funny.
I don't know what the hell Pythagoras theorem is.
My teacher actually was like, this isn't for you. I'm gonna just give you a D so you can pass because I like you. And let's talk about these other frontiers for you, because
that was the same grade I talked myself into. I got you, yeah.
And if I push you through this, that takes a certain level of recognition and courage from your thought leader, from your mentor, to tell you like, hey, this isn't your space. And who am I to push you through this? Because I'm thinking I'm pushing you through the drapes of graduation, where you're actually pushing me through a cheese grater, right? And it's making me worse on the other side. I'll be just like a cheese grater, broken up, distracted, unable to reform myself into what my real innate capacity and abilities actually are. And I think it becomes, we abide by an educational system that's so top down that teachers don't, it takes a very strong teacher to learn lessons from their students, to make sure that they're pushing them and mentoring them in the directions that are most applicable to their traits and what they want out of life. Yeah? And then as a student, it's up to you to say, you know, this is what I want versus this is what I can do, right? And that's a very, you live or die by that. You win or succeed. You win or fail by that, right? Because you chase the things that you want versus things that are already in front of you that you know how to do. You sacrifice, and then you come out the other side. You know, subject yourself to the lottery of life at that point, as opposed to hanging on to what you know is certain. So I mean, I love the wild stuff. I tell people all day, you know, chase the wildness of life. But at the same time, too, there's form to life. There's a system to life, and it can be studied, if not mastered. If not mastered, PhD'd and doctorated as well. And don't limit yourself. But at the same time, too, you know, have fun, right? And that being a billionaire isn't the only metric for success, right? Because there's a bunch of really, I'm not even gonna get into it because it's Ramadan, but there's a, it's happiness isn't always over there.
Well, that's interesting because in December, when TV One announced that my daily morning news show was being canceled, when I sat with the CEO, I didn't flinch, I didn't move, I wasn't mad, I wasn't upset. And after people were like, dude, why are you not upset? Because literally while he was still talking, I was already on what I'm doing next. I was literally sitting there saying, I'll call this person, this person, this person, this person, this person, because I'd already been working on that the previous 3 years. And it's been very interesting for 6 months because people have been going, hey man, but are you gonna go to CNN? Are you gonna go back? How about MSNBC? And I'm like, no. And they're trying to figure out, like, why am I not freaking out? Why? And I said, no, I'm gonna likely launch my own daily live stream show. And then it's kind of like, yeah, but who's gonna do it? And I'm going, me. And it's been an interesting conversation with people because they are still caught up in somebody else controlling it, as opposed to, no, I've learned the technical side, the editorial side. I have these relationships. No, we're going to do it this way. And then we're going to launch it in September. I'm going to announce it in more detail next month, July 2nd. But trying to get people to understand that I'm not my validation is not by being on somebody else's network. That if I am happy doing what I'm doing, what I'm creating, I'm good. That to me is something that I think we also have to really begin to teach folks. This idea that your validation, your notion of greatness of what you do is not because somebody else says, that's it.
There can be no community without self-sufficiency. Yeah, you can't have group dynamic without a personal dynamic, right? A personal ability to add to the pot, even if it's that in your own special way, right? If you can't bring something to the table by your own 2 hands, walked on your own 2 feet, then we have a problem, right? We get into, I don't know if Leroy should come up in here because he don't never bring nothing to the potluck, right? It's like, Leroy, what do you know how to make? And there's some nudging to that. It takes getting fired sometimes.
Or if Leroy can't make nothing, he can clean the hell out his kitchen.
Exactly right. So like, Leroy, what
I mean, you can clean them damn dishes. Say, bro, come on, because I don't feel like cleaning.
But I think we have to start giving people that list of roles, right? And not just have it be the top 5 or the top 10 list, the best. You know, if you're not doing this, then you should be ashamed of yourself. If somebody isn't working for you, you should be ashamed of yourself, right? That's the power. You're supposed to just sit up and things are just supposed to happen at your feet. There's a certain reality to that and how we live and how we navigate through this society. But I think there is something to we have to provide people with Leroy. We have to show Leroy what he knows how to do, right?
But also, I think change thinking. And so when I think about that, is I was in Barbados and I gave this speech because somebody heard me talk about it, and I've been preaching this concept of Me Inc. And what Me Inc. is that you don't think of yourself as an employer. You think of yourself as your own company, and who you're working with, you're simply a vendor and the other client. And we talk about the whole hustle part and multiple revenue streams. My job is to get other clients. So if this one client says we no longer do business, I could just move over here and I'm perfectly fine. And when I say Me Inc., I try to get people to understand that I need you to walk into a place of employment where you're thinking like a CEO, talking like a CEO, and you begin to ask questions that you may be outside of what you do every single day. And something very basic, I ask people, I say, and granted, we barely use these days, I said, but who buys the Post-it notes? Who buys the pens? They just appear in a supply closet, but you got to ask the question, somebody had to buy that, there had to be a process, and who actually paid for it. So when you go in and grab just 5 packs, well, guess what? Somebody's paying for that. And when I throw that out to people, they go, I never thought about it that way. I said, because you don't think like a CEO. And it causes people to look at their job differently because they're so invested in this one company. I keep saying, look, when they ready to lay you off, no matter how, you came in early, you stayed late, you were committed, but you are a line item on a balance sheet. And then when it's time for you to go, that's it. And it has caused people to totally change their view because they go, I never saw myself that way. So even as an employer, you still should think like it's Me Inc., where you are the most important shareholder in your life.
And don't forget the stakeholders that are around you. Make sure
I can't see that sign, y'all. It's a white sign in the darkness. I don't even know what that even says.
You can holler it out.
Right, just... Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay.
They could have texted me. I'm like, I can't see that sign, and I don't have glasses. Well, go ahead.
No, it's an important point. It's very, very. The people that I vibe with normally, just instantaneously, are people that are systems people. They think systematically. They think throughout the system. They don't think in a programmed way, trained. They think about how one effect affects the entire system. One happening affects everything. And those are the people that are most agile. Those are the people that have the most sustainable solutions, right? The most readily available solutions to really turn on and turn key immediately. And there's something to that, but it is still something that needs to be mentored, and it still needs to be something that needs to be tutored into a person, so they can see it and have the case studies and taste the failures and taste the defeats, but also taste the successes and the championships and what it takes to become a systems thinker, to think about, here's this traumatic event, let me just focus on the dude who got shot and the dude who shot him, but you're not thinking about the kid across the street who was upstairs who heard the gunshots, right? And he's the guy who's making the decision whether he's gonna become, the senator, or if he's gonna, let that fear kind of collapse him back into just becoming something milquetoast or mediocre. But that's the part of it, is like when you step into a situation, let me look at all the pieces and parts of this, to your point, Post-it notes, pens, water fountains, the lights, the janitor. Let me, really immerse myself, even if I don't get the job, right? Even if I'm interning, even if I'm just, I don't want to call it goofing off, but just to be constantly aware of all of the parameters of the system not going down. So, that's one thing that, for you entrepreneurs out there, whatever level of success that you are in, there's something to thinking system-wide as opposed to just thinking about your specific role.
I'm a huge reader. I still read 7 to 9 books at one time. I used to read 300 books a summer as a kid. And there's always something you can take away from a particular book that helps you with business and understand different things. There's been a particular book that you've read that folks might be shocked by, where you really learned a lot from, that just wasn't traditional.
Yeah, there's a brother named Dr. Vincent Brown, who's a professor of history at Harvard, who I work close with on some projects, actually with Society of Spoken Art in different ways. But he wrote a book called The Reaper's Garden, and it's about
The Reaper's Garden.
The Reaper's Garden,
okay.
And it's a really focused, detailed account of slavery specifically in Jamaica. But he kind of goes around the area, that arena, and the relationship between Great Britain and Jamaica in that whole piece. Why that specific piece? Maybe because it's in English. It's probably it's the latest part of the slave trade, so it's probably the most documented. You get to see the whole piece as opposed to if you focus on Spain or Portugal or something like that. But anyway, somewhere in the midst of that book, he brings up, oh, no, I'm so sorry. I was finna go off on a super tangent. Apologize. It's not in that book, but get that book, it's nice. What I meant to say is I am not a reader. I watch documentaries.
Okay.
So I get my fix. And was watching Skip Gates. And he did a piece on slavery again. And he went a piece on Haiti.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about how in Haiti, once they overthrew the French, the Haitians, the ex-slaves, were so dejected and disgusted about their treatment that they went and they destroyed all the plantations. They destroyed all of the machinery. They destroyed everything, the roads, because everything on Haiti was built for the advancement or the propagation of the slave trade. So all of the roads, anything that reminded them of slavery was such a painful part to them that they destroyed it. And then what happened was they also destroyed the only thing on the island that made money. And it was the Haitian mistake, air quotes on mistake is what I called it. And it was, again, that systems thinking. It's a paradox, because in one capacity you applaud that, actions like that. Say, yeah, let's stick it to them. But who are you really sticking it to?
Right.
Right? What trap have you put yourself into? When do you let the emotions cease? Mm-hmm. When do you let the intellect take over? Right? When do you think of the long term versus the short term? When do you think of the public versus the personal? And that is an example of the most dire condition, the most prima facie example of that. But then you think of something like the Holocaust, where Auschwitz is still standing. You can visit it today. It's a museum. I've been there.
Never forget.
Never forget. Right? And then what does that empower? Right? So it's so many things in that as a poet that I can start breaking down mm-hmm. and going into the rabbit holes of making that make meaning. But that idea of the Haitian mistake always sticks to me, and I carry it into business. I carry it into everything that I do. It's like, hold up, before I get super mad at this dude or super mad at this situation or kick this producer out of the studio or do this, that, right? It's like, let me just make sure I'm not making the Haitian mistake, right?
Mm.
Right? So yeah, that's that piece. So yeah, but I can't do 300 books. I'll go crazy.
Well, I know you don't. So you don't read. Luckily, this was a document.
I read, but I don't read.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Well, you said I don't read. But I got you.
I listen.
I got you.
I read with my ears.
Well, luckily this was a documentary and a book. So there was a documentary on Jerry Weintraub. And if you're an entrepreneur, or you want to be an entrepreneur, you should get this book. It is not a business book. It is not. But it is called "When I Stop Talking, You Know I'm Dead." Useful Stories from a Persuasive Man, Jerry Weintraub. So Ocean's 8 came out this weekend. Well, he was the producer of Ocean's 11, 12, all of those different movies. And it is an unbelievable book because he's talking about all his different stories and companies he's run and mistakes that he's made. And he tells this great story in the book where he was promoted for John Denver. And they were somewhere, and John Denver was just going crazy. He was calling every single day. He was losing it. And so he calls Jerry, and Jerry says, "John, it's okay. The tour will be fine. I fired Jimmy." John goes, "Thank God. Is that going to fix it?" He said, "Yes." So John Denver goes back. He calls all the crew together. He says, "I talked to Jerry. Everything's fine. Jimmy is fired. tour is going to be great. Jimmy never existed. Jerry said he was going crazy. He said he created Jimmy. And he said, no, Jimmy's now fired. And there's all these different stories. First of all, it was hilarious as hell that he would think this one dude is responsible for the whole tour being screwed up.
I laughed because I did that. I had Samuel Daniels, who was my agent. And if anybody random came up to me, was like, hey, let me check out this mixtape. I need to run it. You want to come do this show? I'm like, oh, yeah, talk to Samuel Daniels. Yeah. And it was me like, yeah, what's cool? So let's talk this business.
You created, and it was just an amazing, and he has all these different stories that, again, that you can learn from as an entrepreneur, as a person who's a visionary. And I was reading on the train, and I finished, and I said, I need to tell this dude. I mean, his book was just phenomenal. So I called the studio. He was on the lot, and I called the office, and I said, hey, I want to speak to Jerry Weintraub. I just want to tell him how great the book is. And then they said, well, he's not in, and leave a message. Great. About 15 minutes later, my phone rings. Roland Martin, Jerry Weintraub. I'm like, wow. And so we ended up talking. I just told him how great his book was. He goes, he's like, well, I really appreciate that. He said, you get out to L.A.? I was like, yeah. He said, well, next time you come, I'll take you to my favorite eating place. And so he gave me all of his numbers, cell phone, home number. When I went to L.A., we met, had this 3-hour lunch. It was unbelievable. But it was one of those books and one of those documentaries that I don't care where you are, you can learn so much from that's not traditional. And the point there, this is the last question for you, is for people to understand, you don't have to learn things to be an entrepreneur solely from MBA books, or solely from business books, or solely from business documentaries. You have to look at multiple places where you can learn things from and take something from and apply to what you're trying to do.
What was the question?
For you to expound on that.
Oh, Teg, it's an expansionary piece.
See, that was like that's
summed up. You want me to... autograph. You just painted it. Autograph to paint. I mean, the book of life, right? The school of life. These aren't arbitrary phrases or metaphors, right? It is a learning experience, right? The most asymmetrical sometime approach, the most non-traditional approach is the right approach. Other times it may not be so, but it's you having that ability to, understand when to press the button and when not to. But I think for entrepreneurs, and I always say this, because you have to be careful, deadly careful, because Isaac Newton wrote Mathematica Principia. Did he make money off that book? Anybody know what Mathematica Principia is? Foundational text about math and concaves and prisms and blah, blah, blah. Did he make money off that book? Of course he made money off that book. He sold a book. What did he do with the money? He invested it. What did he invest some of that money in? Slave ships. This booming entrepreneurial startup business called slavery, right? Where financial models that we use today in banking systems all around this world, that you go to Wharton and Chicago School of Booth School and to learn these mathematical configurations to chop up insurance rates, were built on how do we keep our profit if 40 people die? Right? So be careful about the business that you're in. You got to come from the heart. You got to work from love. Making $1 billion isn't a success. Exiting isn't a success. Creating the next great app to wash somebody's dishes. Success is, have you positively impacted somebody's life for the better?
And that was a conversation I literally had with someone the way we were going, but we're going to pay you this. And I go, no, I care about what I'm doing, not just what you're going to pay. Folks, one of the things that also, as I talked about what I'm doing next, we've actually been live streaming this conversation. And this is one of the things that we're going to be doing when we announce this, because there are so many things like this that happen all across the country that only the folks in the room are aware of, that people can really gain a lot of knowledge from. And so having a vehicle to be able to spread those things is important. So look for us to have a much larger announcement on July 2nd. Put your hands together, please, for Lupe Fiasco.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, brother.
Appreciate it. All right, folks, back to that Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. Now, a word from one of our Roland Martin Unfiltered partners. You've heard me say it before, and I will say it again. Write down this website, marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org. I'm going to tell you why it matters. Legal marijuana has grown to become a $9 billion industry in roughly 6 years. Forbes magazine predicts the market will continue to grow to nearly $50 billion in the next 10 years. So whether you like it or not, legal marijuana is a growing industry, and it is only going to get bigger. Now, if you're an investor, you get it. You look for business models that are easy to understand in industries that are trending up. Our friends at Transatlantic Real Estate made their business very simple. They buy land that supports legal marijuana operations and lease it to high-paying tenants. So you are investing in the landlord of a licensed marijuana farm. Stop working so hard for your money. Let your money start working for you by investing in the legal cannabis industry. You can invest as little as $300 up to $10,000. But you can't wait. This crowdfunding opportunity is only available for a few more days. They say that you either make things happen, watch things happen, or sit around wondering what happened. Don't be the person watching and wondering. Don't let another investment boom get away from you. It's time to make something happen for you, your finances, and your family. And don't forget my pro tip. To be included, you must complete and confirm your application. And be sure to complete the process. Go to marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org. Get in the game, folks. Do it now before time runs out. Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Because guess what? We come back live January 3rd. The blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Hello. Y'all want some of this? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications. There's only one show out here, folks, in the digital world that's focused on you. Because here's the piece. I ain't afraid of Fox News. Come back live January 3rd.